Again, it's a rich thing.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back. In this video we're going to build a simple TCP chat room in Java. So we're going to have one central server and multiple clients are going to connect to that server. They're going to be able to exchange messages, to change their nicknames, to leave the server, and we're going to build this in Java. This is the first time actually we use Java on this channel. We have used Python, C, C++, Go, even assembly, but never Java. And you know probably that I'm not the biggest Java fan, but I think it's interesting to build a TCP chat in Java because it's quite different than doing this in Python or C. Python and C are quite similar when it comes to sockets. So we have the same keywords, sockstream, AF-INET. We have a very similar type of using sockets, a very similar way of using sockets in Python and C. In Java, it's quite different. We have buffered readers and print writers. We have sockets, server sockets, and we have a whole different type of multi-threading. And compared to Python, we have multi-threading in the first place because Python is limited by the global interpreter lock. And because of that, we're going to build this today in Java. So let's get right into it. We're going to start by creating a server file. So we're going to create a new server class like that. And this class is going to implement the runnable interface, because runnable basically means that this class can now be passed to a thread or a thread pool and can be executed concurrently alongside other runnable classes or other classes that implement the runnable interface. And if we implement runnable, this means that we need to implement the run function. So we need to override this and we need to say public void run. And in here we have the code that is executed when we run or start the runnable class. So the idea here in Java is that we create a thread, and instead of passing a function like we do it in Python, in Java we cannot pass functions because they're not first class entities. In Java we pass the whole class, and this class has to be runnable, and when we pass it we can then call this run function. All right, so what we're going to do here as a basic idea is we're going to have the server, and the server is going to constantly listen for incoming connections. So for client requests to connect, and then it's going to accept these connection requests, and then we're going to open a new connection handler for each client that connects. So we're going to have an inner class where actually we can start coding it already. We're going to have an inner class called connection handler. And this class is also going to implement runnable. So it's also going to have its own run function. We can also implement it with a click here. And this function, this class here is going to be what handles the client connection. So we're going to pass the client to it, and then it's going to handle the individual connections that we accept here. So first of all, we're going to create a server socket for the server itself. And this is going to be a new server socket. And all we need to pass here in Java is actually the port number. We don't need to pass an internet address, an IP address, unless you want to specify one manually. But we only have to pass the port. So in this case, we're going to listen on 9999. And as you can see here, we already have to catch a IO exception. So this is something that we always need to do in Java when we use something like writers or readers, buffered readers, print writers, or sockets. We always need to catch IO exceptions. So we have a try block. If an exception is thrown, we're going to go to the catch block. And in this case, this just prints the exception and ignores it. We can also, handle it in a way. So I'm going to remove this actually, and I'm going to say to do handle like that, because later on we're going to have a shutdown function. Now this server has the accept method, and this accept method returns a client socket. So I can go ahead and say socket client equals and then server.accept. So when we accept the connection, we get a socket here. Of course, don't forget to import all these. It imports them automatically if you use IntelliJ. So Java IO exception and Java net server socket and socket. And now what we want to do is we don't want to deal with the client in here. We want to open a new instance of the connection handler instead of handling it here, because we need to handle multiple clients concurrently. And because of that, we're going to define a constructor here. We're going to say public connection handler, and we're going to pass a socket, which is going to be the client that we're going to deal with. And we're also going to have a private socket client here. And then we're going to say this dot client equals client. There you go. And what we're also going to do is we're going to define a buffered reader, which is going to be in, and we're going to define a print writer, which is going to be out. So the buffered reader is what we're going to use to get the stream from the socket. So when the client sends something, we're going to get it from in, and when we want to write something to the client, we're going to use out. Now, in the run function, what we want to do is we want to also open up a try catch block because we're going to have to catch IO exceptions. So IO exception E, come on. And we're going to also add to do handle here. And in the try block, what we're going to do is we're going to deal with the client. So first of all, we're going to initialize the out and in streams that we have here. So the reader and the writer. And for that, we're basically just going to say out equals new print writer. To the print writer, we need to pass an output stream. We can get this directly from the client, and we're going to set auto flush to true, so we don't need to always manually flush the output stream in order to actually send the messages. We're going to also say in equals, by the way, let me just check real quick if I'm not blocking anything here with my camera. I'm not. All right, so in is going to be a new buffered reader. And the buffered reader is going to be, you have to pass an input stream reader. And to this input stream reader, again, you need to pass an input stream. And the input stream is what you get from the client. So client.get input stream. Then we pass this to the input stream reader. And then we make a buffered reader out of it. So those are the two things now that we can use. And all we need to do now to send something to the client is we need to say out.println. Out.print line like that. So this is how I say hello to the client. And if I want to get a message from the client, I just say in.readline, and then I can print it with system out print line. So what we want to do first is we want to send to the client a prompt that asks for a nickname. So we're going to say out.println, please enter a nickname. Like that. And then we're going to wait for an input from the client. So we're going to say the nickname. Actually, this should be a private string up here. Private nickname. Private string nickname, sorry. We're going to say that this nickname is just in.readline. So whatever the client sends after this. Now, of course, if you're building a professional chat, not just for a video, you can also do all sorts of edge cases. So you can check, is the string empty? Is it full of spaces? Is this a valid nickname? Is it too long? And so on. Those are just if-else with string functions. So I'm not going to bother doing that here. All you need to do is you need to say, okay, actually after that, if the nickname is not null, and if the nickname contains and is whatever, is blank, whatever, you can play around with that if you want to. I'm just going to assume that the client is going to enter a valid nickname, so I don't have to waste the time here on 1,000 if statements. And then we're going to just say as a server log, so this is just for us as a server, we're going to say nickname connected. This is just for us. Now, what we also want to do is we want to broadcast this to all the other clients. For that, we're going to need a list of clients that are connected. And because of that, we're going to go to the server here, and we're going to create a private array list full of not strings, but connection handlers. And this is going to be the connections list. Of course, we need to import the list, so import the class here. And whenever we create a new client, what we want to do is we want to say connections dot add, and actually we want to add the connection handler, so we need to say connection handler equals new connection handler, and we pass the client here, and here we pass or we add the handler. So in order to be able to send something to the client via the handler, we need to implement a function here, which is just going to send a message. So it's going to be a public void send message with string message as a parameter. There you go. And we're going to just say out.println message. Nothing too complicated here. And in order to broadcast now to all the different clients that are connected, all we need to do is we need to implement a broadcast function. So public void broadcast, and we want to broadcast a certain message. And this message, for this, we're going to say for connection handler ch in connections. So this is a for each loop. For each of those, we're going to say if it's not null, because it can be null for some reason, maybe. What we're going to do is we're going to call ch.sendMessage with the message. As simple as that. And essentially what we want to do is we want to immediately broadcast that this nickname joined now. So join the chat like that. And now what we want to do is we want, for this particular client, we want to always have a loop that asks for new messages. So we're going to say string, the message that we get from the client is going to be null by default. And then we're going to say while the message, which is in.readline, while this whole thing is not null, we're going to process this message. So we're going to say if the message, we want to implement a command here. So if the message starts with certain commands, so for example, we can say /nick in order to change the nickname. If the message starts with /nick and a space, then we're going to do handle nickname. Then else if, for example, message dot starts with and then /quit, then we're going to allow the client to quit. And otherwise, if there's no command or no known command, we're just gonna broadcast the message immediately to all other connected clients. And for that, all we need to do is we need to say broadcast nickname colon and the message. So that is the simple thing here. So for the nickname, all we need to do is we need to get the message. So for this, we're going to get a string array. We're going to split the message. So the message split is going to be message.split on the white space with a maximum of 2. So everything after the white space is going to be a nickname. And if the message split has a length of 2, split.length equals 2, we're going to say that the nickname equals message split index 1. So the second part of the split, because the first one is going to be the /nick. And before we do that, though, we're going to broadcast that the nickname is being changed. So we're going, before the nickname is changed, we're going to say nickname renamed themselves to, and then message split 1. And of course, we can also do the same thing with system out println, not south, come on. There you go. And then we also get the server lock message. And for the, to the client, we want to also say that they changed the name successfully. So we want to say nickname, or let's go with successfully changed nickname to nickname, like that. All right. And of course, otherwise, if the length is not equal to 2, we're going to say that no nickname was provided. So out println no nickname provided. Now for quit, we're going to call the shutdown function that we don't have yet. So we want to have a function that shuts down the server or individual client connections. So we're going to have actually, by the way, I think we should initialize the array list here. before we do anything else. So public server is going to say connections equals new array list, like that. And here we have the connections at. So the shutdown function is going to be here. It's basically just going to shut down the whole thing. And all we want to do is we actually want to, what do we actually do? Do we close the server socket? Because then we would have to define it up there, right? We should close the server socket though. Maybe we should make it private. So maybe we should, or actually a local attribute, server socket, server, like that. And then we're going to just assign this here. And the rest can be closed one level below that. So we can say if not server dot is closed, we're going to say server dot close. Before that, or actually not before that, what we're going to also do is we're going to, we need to run this in a while loop, by the way. So we need to say while not done, because we need to always accept connections. So we're going to have while not done, do that, and done is going to be a Boolean, private Boolean done. And we're going to set done to true here, and we're going to set done to false when we initialize. And then we're going to also close the server. Of course, this is going to throw an exception maybe, so we need to catch it. But in this case, I think we cannot really do anything about it anymore. So if an exception is thrown here, we're just going to ignore it. We can also say cannot handle, because then again, you need to handle it again and again and again, and it's not gonna go anywhere. So we shut down the server like that. And what we also want to do is want to say for connection handler ch in connections, we want to call the shutdown function for each individual connection. We don't have this function yet, so we're going to go down here and we're going to implement it. We're going to say public void shutdown, and we're going to say if not client dot is closed, client dot close. We're going to, before we do that, close also the streams. So in dot close, out dot close. And do we have something else here? Don't think so. Let me just see in my prepared code if I missed something. No, this should work. So we need, of course, to surround it again with try catch. Catch IO exception E. And again, ignore this exception if it happens. Now, I don't claim that this is the best and most clean best practice way to do it, but we're going to do it like that for now. So if an exception is thrown here, we're going to just shut down. And if an exception is thrown here, we're going to also shut down. Now, when we quit, we also want to shut down, but we also want to say that the client leaves the server. So we're going to broadcast before that, that nickname left the chat. All right, so that should be most of that. Now, what we didn't do yet is we didn't run the individual threads. So now all these handlers need to be ran in a thread pool. A thread pool is basically a number of threads that can be reused all the time. So we don't need to run a new thread and close, we don't need to create a new specific thread in order to run a handler. Because we have a lot of different client connections, then they disconnect again. Whereas the server is running in one thread all the time. The client connections are short-lived oftentimes. Because of that, we're going to use a thread pool, and we're going to define it locally here. So we're going to say private execution service, or executor service is going to be our thread pool, and we're going to initialize it here. So pool is going to be new, or actually it's going to be executors dot new cached thread pool. And we need to import this again. There you go. And every time we add a new connection, we want to say pool.execute the handler, which is going to run the run function. All right, I think that this is actually all of it when it comes to the server. I think we're done. Let me just see if I forgot anything. No, I have this, I have this. Did we set done to true? Yeah. So I think that's it. Of course, the only thing that we need to do now in the end here is we need to also call the main function. So we're going to have public static void main string array arguments. And here we're going to say that the server is going to be a new server. And we're going to run this server, which again is going to run a connection handler for each connection. All right, so let's just see if we can run this. Then we're going to continue with the client. So I'm going to run the server now and see if we get any exceptions right away. It's going to take some time. You can also run this via the command line, by the way, by just calling javac for compilation and then Java class name. It is running, so seems to work. Let's go and create the client. So client.java, and the client is going to be quite simple. Here we just need two threads. One thread is going to be the one that receives all the messages from the server, and the other one is going to receive our console line input. So we're going to enter the messages in the CLI. This client is also going to implement runnable. And we're going to have here a client socket, so not a server socket. First of all, let's implement the run method. And what we're going to do here is we're going to have, again, try catch, IO exception E. By the way, I think one thing that we can change about the server is that the server should shut down no matter which exception is thrown, like that. Because IO exception obviously extends from the generic exception. So what we're going to do here, first of all, we're going to say handle here, so to do handle. And in the try block, we're basically going to create socket client equals new socket. And here we pass the IP address. In this case, since we're running it locally, it's going to be localhost with the port 9999. And of course, if you connect to someone else's server, you need to pass their public IP address. If it's locally in the local area network, you can also pass a private IP address. If you're running this on your own computer, you can pass localhost, which is this one. So then again, we say out equals new, or actually we need to define them here as local attributes first. So we're going to have the private socket client, because again, we're going to have an inner class, which is going to handle the inputs. So we need this class to be able to access these attributes. Private buffered reader is going to be in, and private print writer is going to be out. So out is going to be new print writer client dot get output stream and true for auto flush. And in equals new buffered reader, new input stream reader, client get input stream. We need to import this. Okay. Thanks for the alarm. So we need to import this as well. And then what we do is we create the inner class, the input handler. So class input handler is going to implement runnable as well. And all we need to do in the input handler is we need to constantly ask for new console line inputs. So essentially, we also have a run function, and we're going to again say try, as always, catch the IO exception and handle it in some way. And in the try block, what we're going to do is we're going to say the buffered reader in reader, or we can maybe call it input reader. Let's call it in reader. Is going to be a new buffered reader with a new input stream reader, but this time we're going to pass system.in. So we're going to pass the command line input, which means that we're going to be able to do this ourselves. When we call readline, we're going to be asked to input something. And here we're going to say while not done, we need to add done again to these variables. So private, do we actually need to add it there? I mean, we can also add it in the inner class, I think, but then we cannot shut down from the outside. So let's do it here. Boolean done. And while not done, what we're going to do is we're going to ask for user input. So we're going to say if, we're going to say no. We're going to say string message equals inReader dot readline, and if the message dot equals actually slash quit, if this is the case, we're going to perform a shutdown. So we're going to close the input reader or the in reader, and we're going to call a shutdown function that does not exist yet. And it's not going to exist inside of the handler, it's going to exist outside. So it's going to exist here. We're just going to call the outer class shutdown function. So public void shutdown. And we're going to do all sorts of things here. So we're going to, first of all, set done to true. We're going to say try to close the, the input stream here. So, or the buffered reader, then also the print writer, and then if not client dot is closed, then we're going to also close the client. And of course, we want to catch the exception here, but at the end of the day, we cannot really do anything about it, so we're going to ignore it at this point. Yeah, so that is if we pass quit. Otherwise, all we need to do is we need to just send the message to the server, which is then going to broadcast, which will then broadcast the message. So we're going to say out.println message. Remember that the out is the stream that we get from the client, so this is actually sent to the server. I think that's it for the input handler. If something happens, we need to shut down. And inside of the client, where are we? Now we need to also create a thread for this one. So we're going to say input handler, in handler is going to be a new input handler. And then we're going to create a thread this time, not a thread pool, because the input handler is one input handler. So thread t equals new thread. We pass, we pass the input handler here, and we say t.start. Start is important because run doesn't open a separate thread as far as I know. Start does. So after that, we're going to then also have an in message here. And then we're going to say again, while in message, which is essentially just in dot readline, while this thing is not null, we're going to just system out println it. There you go, in message. And I think that's it. Of course, here we also shut down. And if I didn't make any mistakes here, this should actually be it. This should be the client and the server. So let's run the server first and let's see if it works with one client. And then we're going to use a command line to run multiple clients. So the server should work without a problem. Now let's right click and, oh, we don't have a main function. We don't have a main function. So let's go down here and create a main function and say client is new client client run. Now we can run this. And hopefully it will connect without exceptions to the server. And now I can choose a nickname. Let's say NeuralNine. NeuralNine joined the chat. NeuralNine connected. Hey, NeuralNine. Hey. All right, so let's close this client now. And let's also close the server. Now, when we run the client, let me actually run it one more time. You can see the command which is executed. Now I got an exception because the server is not up. But you can see that this is the command. Basically, we have the Java command, some path, and here the important thing is that we specify the class path, which is the path to the app, and then we also need to pass the class name, or if you use a package, so if you have packages, also the package.class name. This is important because we need to run this in the command line, so we're going to open up CMD now, and I'm going to navigate first to my Python directory, then back one to my Java directory, and then we're going to navigate to NeuralNine, to the chat app, and then to the source directory. There you go. Here you have the client Java. I'm going to do it one more time because I need two chats. So Java, NeuralNine, chat app, source. And now I'm going to have one to the left, one to the right. And in here, what we're going to do, since they're already, no, they're actually not compiled. So what we need to do first is we need to say Java C for the compilation. And we need to pass class, I think class, not class, client.java. This is going to compile it. So if I run ls or dir, you can see that I now have client class and client input handler class. And now I can run this by saying Java. I think client will not be enough. Oh, it is actually. Okay, so if you have a package name, though, you need to provide the class path as well. But all we need to do now is we need to run Java here and Java there. And we need to run the server first so we don't get an exception. And then we should see that all of this works. So server is running. Let's go ahead and run the client here. Let's run the client Java client here as well. Here I'm going to connect with NeuralNine. Here I'm going to connect with Florian. And now I can just say hello. I can say hi. What is up? Not much. How about you? Whatever. And now I'm going to change the nickname from NeuralNine to, so I'm going to say Nick, your favorite YouTuber. I hope that's right. There you go. Now you can see here NeuralNine, and this guy sees it as well. NeuralNine renamed themselves to your favorite YouTuber, successfully changed nickname. In the server log, you can also see that this happens. And now I can just go ahead and say, hey. And you can see that I now have a new nickname. I can now also say /quit. And this should quit the application. I'm not sure if it did work. But, I mean, it's still running. So let's see, where is this actually? When I go to the client. When I go to quit. I have InReader close, shut down. And this should actually shut down everything, so I'm not sure why it's still running. Because the in is closed, out is closed, the client is closed. The InReader is closed, so I'm not sure what's still running, to be honest. Actually, everything... Oh, did I set done? Yeah, I set also done to true. So I think if I run this in IntelliJ, actually it's going to quit. I'm not sure why it's not happening in the command line. I got an exception now. Null pointer exception. Client. Maybe I have to also close the thread or something. I'm not sure. So let's see if it works here. I'm going to call myself, hey, I'm going to quit right away. Okay, it doesn't seem to work, but it worked in the preparation. So I think I forgot something. Let me just see. I think one thing that we should definitely do at least... Oh, the client socket. Oh, this is the problem. I'm defining the client socket here, but I'm not using that. So I need to remove the socket here. So I actually assign to this socket, and now it should work. At least I think so. And one thing that we also need to do here in the shutdown is we need to shut down, or we should shut down the pool. So we should say pool.shutdown, because that means it will not accept any more requests. So let's run the server again. Let's go to the clients again. Run the clients. NeuralNine. Florian. Let's change the nick to Bob. Hey. Hey, and now /quit. /quit. Okay, still doesn't work though. Does it? Now maybe it works in IntelliJ now. Let's connect with a client. Let's run this. Test. Hey, quit. No, still doesn't work. Okay. So let's see what I have in my prepared code. I said done to true, in close, out close. I think I do this as well in the client here. So in close, out closed. If client is closed, if not, client is closed, close it. That's actually all I do. And I also close the input handler. So I think that when I close the server, this should actually also close the client connection. Or was it closed already? Maybe it just takes some time. But it gets this null pointer exception at client shutdown because it tries to shut down something that doesn't exist. Oh, maybe, no, this cannot be the reason. Okay, but all in all, it seems to work. I need to see if I find a fix. If I find a fix, I'll let you know. But all in all, the chat works. There's just something running in the background, or at least terminating too late. But yeah, that's how you build a simple TCP chat room in Java. All right, I think I found a mistake. The problem is that we're not sending the quit command to the server, so we need to also say out println and /quit. Or actually, we can just send a message here because it equals quit. Because remember, in the server, we have a branch that handles the /quit command. And if we don't send the actual message, if we just shut down, then we're not going to trigger this. So we need to also send this. And one more thing that I realized is that I always run the same thing without compiling it. So I need to, again, say Java C client, Java C client.java. And then we can run it. So first of all, let's run the server run, and then we can go with the clients as well. So Java client and Java client, now NeuralNine and Florian, hey, and then /quit. Florian left the chat, and you can see that it's quit. There you go. So now it works finally. This was the problem. We were not sending the command, the actual command to the server. And also while testing, we didn't compile what we changed. So that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video, and bye.